Good afternoon. This is Bob Philo speaking, bringing you the third lesson in our ancestral history lesson entitled BP's College of Genealogical Knowledge. Today we are going to talk about our Smith ancestors. But before I start on the Smiths, I need to make a couple amendments to last time's lesson regarding the Haynes. Couple of important facts I want you to know about. First off, our fourth great-grandfather, Tobiah Hayne, was born in 1769, died in 1832, and lived his entire life in Sussex County, New Jersey. And what I found was that Tobiah owned slaves. He had two slaves, one a male by the name of Sim, and another by the name of Hannah. He could have had more, but I only know about these two. The slaves were freed by Tobiah. Sim remained on the farm and really didn't have much ambition, just remained a hired hand on Tobiah's farm. And Hannah actually moved off the farm, moved into the close by town, and was able to support herself and lived a prosperous life. The second fact that I wanted to bring to your attention, in the manuscript I mentioned about our great-great-grandfather Henry S. Hayne, Henry Hayne, who was born in 1828 and died in 1911 in Davison, Michigan. In the manuscript written around 1920 by a Haynes relative, it cites that Henry often spoke about when he was a young boy, he was caught by his great-uncle Peter Hayne, who was a brother of Tobiah. He was caught wrestling with one of Peter's slaves and was punished quite severely for wrestling with the slaves. So I wanted you to know that there are slaves in our ancestry. Now, to get to the Smiths, furthest back that I've gone is to our third great-grandfather, George Z. Smith, who was born in 1800 in New Jersey, passed away in 1875 in Wilson, Niagara County, New York. By 1828, George Z. had moved from New Jersey to Wilson, New York. That's where our second great-grandmother, Martha Smith Hayne, was born. And George is listed in Wilson on the 1830 census. In 1844, George bought a farm that is still in existence today. The farm is located approximately 7 miles east of Wilson, and it was a 98-acre farm that he bought in 1844 for the sum of $800. Now that farm has some interesting stories connected with it. In 1866, in the fall of 1866, I found a newspaper article that cites George took a load of grain to Lockport, New York, the county seat, about 12 miles from his farm in Wilson. He was gone all day. While he was gone, 2 masked men, robbers, broke into the house and demanded the money that they knew George kept in the house, demanded it from, the article states, George's wife. Now she told them George keeps no money in the house, all his money's in the bank. And they knew that this was not true, so they resorted to strong arm tactics. They pulled out handguns and told her, "You sit still," to the wife, "don't move. We're going to shake down this house until we find what we're looking for." Well, they did. They found $250 cash, and they found a $500 bond that George had purchased. George bought the bond off a man by the name of Curtis Pettit. George bought it in the spring of 1866, and then the robbery took place in the fall of 1866. I found another newspaper article that was a listing by the Niagara County Sheriff, a reward for $50 leading to information regarding the perpetrators of the crime, and there were two other major thefts in that area that the sheriff was also trying to solve with this $50 reward. Next that we heard about the robbery was in the fall of 1868. Found another newspaper article that cited the sheriff now was posting a $500 reward for information regarding the theft. As far as I know, nothing came of all of the investigation. The next notice about the robbery I found was that in 1869, in the fall of 1869, by that time that $500 bond had matured, George Z. petitioned Niagara County, telling them or stating to them, nobody has cashed in the bond. You know that I was the rightful owner, and therefore I am asking Niagara County to pay me the $500 rightfully owed me. And the county officials met and decided that his was a just claim, and he was paid the $500 that he was owed. As I said, George passed away in 1875. He's buried in the Greenwood Cemetery located in Wilson, Niagara County, New York. Now, by 1877, the farm had been left to George Z's 6 surviving children, who had by that time all moved to Michigan. And 5 of the 6 were living in the Richfield, Davison, Genesee County, Michigan area. In 1877, the 6 children were Martha, our great-great-grandmother, her sisters Catherine and Phoebe, and brothers George Jr., William Tip, nicknamed Tip Smith, and an Ira Smith. I don't know whatever happened to Ira. He moved to the Detroit area, and I have not been able to determine whatever became of him. But in 1877, George Jr. and Tip bought out the other 4 siblings for a total of $400, probably $100 apiece, for the lands, including the farm and the farmhouse back in Wilson, New York. This was 1877. They filed a quit-claim deed. Now, in 1883, George Jr. has passed away. A little history on George Jr. He fought in the Civil War for the Union side. He was a member of the 1st New York Artillery, enlisted around early 1862, and in the late spring 1864, he was severely injured at the Battle of Resaca, Georgia. And he was, the New York Artillery was part of William Tecumseh Sherman's army that marched on Atlanta and then eventually marched to the sea, destroying everything in its wake. But as I said, George Jr. was injured in Resaca. His military record cites that he was run over by an artillery wagon, thus causing major injuries. And he spent 15 months in the hospital in Detroit, was not discharged from the Army until late summer 1865, moved to Davison, and had a farm in Richfield Township, Genesee County, Michigan. Richfield Township and Davison Township are very close together. And he passed away in 1883, thus leaving the farm properties to his relatives, his wife Laura, and 4 children, and brother Tip Smith. Those 6 people now owned the farmland back in New York. Well, lo and behold, Tip passes away 1891. And thus the farm is owned, farmland back in New York is owned exclusively by Laura Smith and her 4 children. They in turn sell the property in 1900 to a big-time fruit grower from Niagara County. That is still a very large fruit-growing area of New York State. And this gentleman paid them $4,869. Now, in 2017 dollars, that $4,869 would amount to $132,000. So the 5 remaining heirs, Laura and her 4 children, each split that $132,000 by today's terms, which amounted to around $26,000 apiece by 2017 dollars. So the farm was in George Z's name, or in the Smith name, from 1844 through 1900. Now, as I said, the relatives, the Smith children, had moved to Genesee County, Davison, Richfield Township. They are all buried, except for Ira. I don't know whatever happened to him, but the others are buried in the Richfield Union Cemetery, located just north of Davison, Michigan. One last interesting fact to let you know about. I'm sure you all remember Alice Thompson, who was married to our grandfather, Cecil Thompson. Well, I was able to find out, if you remember, I mentioned that George Z had 3 daughters, our great-great-grandmother Martha, and there was a Catherine and a Phoebe. I found out that Alice Thompson's grandmother was Catherine Smith, Martha, our great-great-grandmother's sister, which means that our mother and father, Ardith and Edward, respectively, were related to Alice Thompson. They were, by my calculation, second cousins of Alice Thompson. And I often wonder if they knew while they were alive that Alice not only was their stepmother, but their second cousin. So I think that concludes it for the Smiths. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I heard from Linda and from Doug that they received the last video. I've not heard from anybody else. I'd like to know that you have seen it. If you could let me, send me an email, I would very much appreciate it. So until our next lesson, which will deal with the Brown lineage of our family, until then, au revoir. Goodbye.